What's up, comic book fans? Pete here from Comic Books Transformed, where me and my good friend Brian over there discuss adaptations from comic books into movies and streaming shows. Brian, is it still a thing where like people like to watch people's reactions as they watch things?
Yes,
That's so
that's what the whole next generation's about.
yeah, it's about like people just watching and describing what they've watched, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. I was thinking like if we recorded ourselves reacting to this show, it would just be like us crying and be like, "Oh, it's so good."
Yeah,
Right?
and I would look like I rolled out of bed because that's exactly what I do. Is I wake up on Wednesdays. I'm like, oh, gotta watch X-Men.
Gotta
Fuck
fucking watch
breakfast.
it.
Fuck doing anything else. I'm watching X-Men first.
Yes. And we usually message each other, and like one of us has seen it first, and then they're like, "Oh my god, this episode!"
Yeah.
And it's been like every fucking episode of this show.
Yeah, and the it's first of all, it is just great to just be that excited about something. But that I do want to wake up and just watch it like I was a kid again.
Hell yeah.
And the hype for this was like all-time high here because we've been seeing like Bo DeMeo post on Twitter ever since episode 5's aired, and he's just giving these little tidbits, and he kept saying that episode 5 is set up and then everything's going to come together in the last 3 and it's going to be insane.
Yes.
And it was insane. So many things happened. Many things were in this episode.
Yes. There's so much to unpack. There's so much to talk about. And one thing I want to get to when we get to the end is that there are like iconic X-Men phrases that you see constantly through X-Men comics. And I feel like they say like 4 of them in this episode.
Oh, yeah, we got Beast, All My Stars and Garters.
Right.
To me, my X-Men is a very common one. Bub.
Magneto was right.
Magneto was right. And then Nightcrawler saying "Mein Freund."
Yes.
We've read that before. Yeah, there's all kinds of things. Yeah.
Right, but even at the very end, doesn't Magneto say "no more," which is kind of like, right? Isn't that what he says when he drops down?
Yeah, he does say "no more." He doesn't say anything else.
Right, but
I'm actually curious what you think happened at the end there, but maybe we should say that until later.
Yes, let's go in order. I got our little tickers here at the bottom for those of you that are watching on YouTube. We always love you guys watching on YouTube, and then of course the people that are listening to the podcast, you guys are great too. We always have these little tickers going across. This one says Summers Family Reunion because the cat is out of the Cable bag. Scott and Gene know that Cable is Nathan Summers. What do you think of that?
I mean, it's obviously we knew it the whole time, but it's nice to see these things referenced. In the old show, there were so many episodes where, like Cyclops met Corsair like 3 times, and then before realizing it was his dad, and he met Havoc, and he had no idea it was his brother, and all kinds of things like that. Like all these people are meeting, and they have no idea that they're related.
Right.
It's just nice to see them acknowledge it finally.
Yeah, and they kind of like brush it off. Like Cable's basically like, all right, whatever. We don't got time for this.
Yeah, we don't got time for this, Dad.
Yeah.
He does sound like an old man as a teenager sometimes.
Yes. And he does sound like Josh Brolin. It really does sound like that Josh Brolin Cable. So they do like a little breakdown. They start talking about like what's going on with Bastion. And we talk about a fixed point in time. Like Cable has tried to prevent the Genoshan massacre, but he's been unsuccessful multiple times. And then Beast does one of multiple references to like the greater Marvel universe. He references the Mystics of Kamartaj. What'd you think of that?
That was a nice little name drop in there. It felt like it was just as important as one of the cameos we see later that are outside of the larger X-Men world.
Mm-hmm.
So all these things are great. All these little nods to because while we did get glimpses of other characters in the show, they were not extensive, but I feel like they're going to make this a little broader this time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's exciting.
Yeah, that was one of the best things about the X-Men cartoon, or maybe it's the best thing for this show, is that the 90s cartoon did show other Marvel characters, even if they're just like little flashes of a character, but there was always this hint that, oh, this is the Marvel universe. It's not just like an X-Men world, kind of like the X-Men movies are.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the cartoon universes that you're used to from these properties, they do kind of keep it close to the chest there. Like they do kind of keep it to their own limited little world there, and it was always nice to see those larger nods to the existing comic world.
Yes, and boy, does it pay off at the fucking end of this.
Yeah.
So, one thing I want to get out of the way, I've been listening to the Cerebro podcast, and the host Connor does a really fantastic job. I've been listening to this episode where they're talking to Kieran Gillen, and they do a whole episode on Mr. Sinister. Mr. Sinister's in this episode of X-Men 97. One of the things that they always would be critical of was the fact that Mr. Sinister was working with the Nazis at one point. And so they thought that that's kind of unnecessary. And Mr. Sinister goes ahead and makes a Nazi reference in this episode.
Yeah. What did he say again? It was one of the Nazi scientists, right?
Mengele, which is the Nazi scientist who was just a fucking barbarian. And Mr. Sinister's like, oh, he shouldn't have gotten involved with the Nazis. He had potential. He said something like that, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But what's interesting, because what's great about that Cerebro show is that Connor essentially goes through the whole history of a character and talks about like everything that they've done. And you get these contradictions with Sinister because he's been throughout history, you know, and with modern X-Men, there's the idea that Mr. Sinister has like 4 copies of himself. And the implication is that the one that worked with the Nazis is not the one that's on Krakoa.
Oh,
yeah. Because there's one that's like doing kind of like Weapon X stuff and around the time of World War II. So he's in like Canada. And then there's one that's in Nazi Germany.
Interesting. So wait, so it was a different Mr. Sinister, or was it like a Dr. Stasis was one and then Sinister was the other?
So Dr. Stasis is the Nazi one.
Okay,
and
got it.
And then Mr. Sinister is the Weapon X one.
Because I wouldn't be surprised if there were multiple Mr. Sinisters with the diamond around too, because that's, you know.
Yeah, there's so many fucking, he's like, that's a line that Kieran Gillen loves to say or whatever, is like Sinister is a system. It's like a whole bunch of people.
Yeah.
I do think that we have that potential for like future seasons where there'll be multiple Sinisters, but right now it's just one Sinister. Yeah. So then another thing that came up is the idea that Bishop and Cable were not together when Cable was Nathan as a baby, that they got separated somehow in the future.
It was unclear to me as if it literally happened as they were falling through time. You know, Bishop does that circly thing when he goes through time. Did it happen there, or did he get separated at some point later on? Like how long was Bishop with Cable, if at all? Was it 5 minutes and that was it? Was it 30 seconds into that time dive and he's gone? And then where is Bishop?
Right. Like if we're going through like the regular classic X-Men comics, the idea is that like Bishop's future is maybe like, I don't know, 20 years into the future of the X-Men continuity. Then like the stuff with like Nimrod is like, it's in Bishop's future. What's that?
Isn't Cable's futures like 300 to 500 years later?
Right. Cable's is like way further in the future, and it has Apocalypse and stuff. So then like, where do you think this time with Bastion comes from? Like in between?
That's a great question, because the comic origin, I don't think they can do exactly. The comic origin wasn't Nimrod put through the Siege Perilous, and then he was kind of reborn as a human, which was Bastion, and then Master Mold like downloaded himself into Bastion, and that's how it happened or something.
It's some kind of fucking
something like that. Something crazy.
Yeah. What's cool about this version of Bastion, regardless of his origins, is that he's connected to the techno-organic virus. And the techno-organic virus is a big part of like X-Men mythology. That's what Cable's infected with. He's infected with his own kind of strand of it. Apocalypse infected him with it in the comics. But then the techno-organic virus is connected to the phalanx. And that's like, that was their way to like assimilate organic material. Yes, through that. You know, and so they're implying in this show, in this episode, that Bastion, like his dad was like a janitor, and he got infected by the techno-organic virus in the future, and then he passed it on to his kid.
Yeah.
And that's how we get Bastion.
Yeah, that's crazy stuff. And the funny thing is that, and I've been watching the homework that Bo DeMaio assigned.
Okay.
I haven't finished one man's worth yet, but Bastion's mom appears in the episode.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
That's interesting.
So there's a point where the characters go back to 1959 to prevent Charles from dying, and they're in like a diner talking to Charles before he. I know he realizes he has mutant powers, but he's not really like doing anything with them yet. She's the waitress in the diner.
Oh my god, that's fucking wacky.
Other crazy thing that I learned recently too. I had no idea. I guess I should have realized it at the time, but I didn't know that the storyline one man's worth in the cartoon that actually inspired the Age of Apocalypse comic. It wasn't the other way around.
What?
Yeah, they both came out in '95, but because of cartoon production timelines are so like crazy long, the people at Marvel at the time they had the whole outline of it in '94. So the show was conceived first, and while the comics may have come out first, the show is the basis for it, which is insane to me.
Get the fuck out of here. For real?
Yeah.
Holy shit. Okay, I am definitely gonna look that up. That is crazy. I would have thought that in my life. But that makes sense because it's like so much more complicated and so much more time consuming to make a animated show than to make a comic book.
Yeah, exactly. And it's interesting too. Like I don't really remember all these details, but you know, some of those great cameos in the future scenes here, like you see Blink's there for half a second. AOA Sabretooth and Wild Child are there. The AOA Morph is there too, in addition to an X-Men looking Morph as well. A regular cartoon looking Morph. So yeah, I'm so interested to find out like what came first design wise and all these things, because it's my whole world is turned upside down. Like I always thought that everything in that show was basically taken from or inspired by the comics, not the other way around.
Whoa, that is fucking crazy. Yeah, because I remember watching it as a kid and being like, "Oh, this is gonna be like Age of Apocalypse," and then, wow, okay. My mom bought me this awesome gift. She got me this like behind the scenes book on the X-Men animated series. It's like this illustrated guide. It has all these pictures. Yeah, and so now you're making me want to go through it and see if there's any discussion about that in there.
Yeah, let me know.
Yeah. So one last thing I wanted to bring up while we're talking about Bastion and his future and stuff is that the techno-organic virus, it's a major thing in the Krakoan era too. And there's the idea that like you have humans and then you have mutants, and mutants keep evolving and growing in power, and they're going to outnumber humans. And Bastion says that in this episode. He says that eventually mutants are going to outnumber humans and they're going to take over. Then you have the idea of like technology developing, and then eventually AI. Down the road, you're going to have like this sort of like collective mind with artificial intelligence. And with Jonathan Hickman, who created, the whole Age of Krakoa, there's the idea that like that's the ultimate evolution of every species, is that you kind of get to this AI point and it's like this collective mindset, like kind of like the Borg from Star Trek. Yeah. And so I think that that's kind of the future that Bastion is like putting everyone on the path to.
Yeah, no, it's essentially 3 different stages of evolution. It's man, then mutant, and then machine and AI. And the big thing here is that Bastion is revealing that mutants' time isn't going to be that. They don't want mutants' time to be that long there. They're going to get replaced already, and that was like a big, crazy threat.
Yes, and so Orcus in the comics, it kind of incorporates this too. It's like this sort of like anti-mutant group that kind of takes the place of Shield, because Shield isn't in the Marvel comics anymore. And Orcus seems to be like based solely on the idea of not letting mutants take over, but eventually you learn that they've been inspired by the future too, just like Bastion, and they are just trying to essentially evolve to this like AI future as well. And that's where you get this one character who's in this fucking episode, Karima Shapendar, who's also known as the Mega Sentinel. Did you notice her?
I don't think I did. No.
She's with Bastion, you know. So
the assistant.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I thought the assistant's name was like Darla or something like that.
Oh, he says her fucking name?
Yeah, I don't think that's her. I mean, unless it's
okay.
Unless I either misheard or something else. I mean, she has the same skin color, obviously.
Yeah.
She's bald though, isn't she? In this,
she's bald in this, and then she's bald in the comics. In the
she's bald when she's like evil Sentinel version, but she has hair previously because she was a good guy for a while.
Right, exactly. Yeah, because I Googled her before, and I remember seeing her in the comics in the 90s when I still read the comics, and she was a good guy. She was like a good Sentinel.
Yeah.
And then I think she was even around when we got back into the X-Men too.
But yeah, that's the only thing I remember her from really was like the mid 2000s or late 2000s.
Yeah. But okay, so I thought that she was there with Bastion, and she's part of Orchis in the comics, but she's also influenced by the future in the comics, and she's trying to get humanity to that point of like AI dominance.
Yes.
So so it's just I was like, oh my god, I thought that was her, but I guess I'm wrong. And so I'll have to rewatch the episode. But in the scene where they do have that assistant and Bastion, he's talking to Val Cooper, and then and Sinister. Actually, he's talking to Sinister, and then you get all these fucking cameos, right?
Yes. And it's interesting too. When I first saw Val in this scene, she has that same suit on that Bastion does, and it kind of lets you know that she's kind of not on the side of good here, although she kind of redeems herself by the end of it, I guess.
Right.
Yeah, we see Dr. Doom, we see Baron Zemo, we see someone else that's kind of shaded. We're not really sure. I feel like they referenced, they made a point to say that we need Val to stay there to monitor or something like that. So I'm wondering if it's someone from a nameless person from the UN, or it's some other person from some other organization in the Marvel Universe that they didn't want to reveal exactly.
Yeah, we were speculating that it could have been like Madame Mask too, if we're just going all villains.
Yeah.
And and eventually, here's spoilers for X-Men, but like Moira McTaggart, who is she's with the mutants to begin with Krakoa. She eventually joins Orchis, and she's like a robot at that point. I was thinking that maybe that could be her, but I don't know.
Yeah, but did we see her body in Genosha? Because she was there.
Yeah. I think she gets killed on Genosha, but
maybe she got turned into a robot already.
Right. Well, okay. Jesus. I wonder, like, if anyone watching our show is just like, what the fuck are they even talking about? But like, Moira's power is that when she dies, the whole fucking timeline resets, and it starts over again. So I think that if she died on Krakoa, that would have happened. Yeah,
if they're going with her having powers or not, if they're just keeping her standard human scientist Moira.
Yeah, we'll see. So I guess we're kind of talking about all this lore stuff. Look, we can get to the action now, right?
Well, yeah.
And boys, there's some great fucking action. Wolverine actually gets to be Wolverine in this episode.
Yeah, he tears the shit out of some people. And it's funny too, because like there's no holding back there. Like usually you'll see characters really let loose on robots because it's like, who cares? They're just killing robots. But these are people that were turned into robots. So it's like, could they get turned back?
Yes.
Or is there going to be a problem that they're sliced into three pieces now?
Yes.
I mean, they were healing and all that. I get it, but yeah, still, I was surprised to see that level of destruction on these. There are many human Sentinels.
Yes. I absolutely love that, because in the cartoon from the 90s, he never used his claws on other people. In the comics, he's fucking stabbing people in the head, chopping heads off, everything left and right. But in the cartoon, he's just always like kind of cutting doors open, or like robots slicing into robots,
Yep.
Here, he's just cutting limbs off left and right.
Yeah.
And you talk about humans being turned into Sentinels. It seems like every fucking human that we see in this episode is a Sentinel.
Yeah, there's like maybe like 3 or 4 people that are just standing there like, what the fuck's going on? Like, what?
Right.
So yeah, so many people. I thought the first one we kind of see here. Obviously we saw Bolivar Trask turn to one last episode, but we see Bastion's mom turn to one, and man, that felt like that felt like something out of a horror movie. And like he's like an old lady like transforming right in front of you, and there's probably a specific reference to that I just can't put my finger on. But that was a great scene there, just to see this little old lady just turn to this mutant killing machine that keeps Cyclops, Jean Grey, and Cable at bay.
Yep. Yeah, she's just one of a whole team that assaults them, and they basically have to escape from Bastion's hometown, which is the whole hometown are Sentinels. Then they go on the Blackbird, and the Blackbird's going to crash, and then Cyclops just makes a fucking car drive out of it. It's fucking crazy.
It looks exactly like it's colored exactly like the Blackbird with pink windows.
Yeah, so good. And then he has that line, of course, where you don't mess with the Summerses or whatever. So what I was going to say was, in that sequence when they're getting attacked and stuff like that, Magneto, he's being held prisoner by all of them, right? By Bastion's forces. And Magneto gets let free by Valerie Cooper, and then Bastion, has his, machinery kind of pick her up, and it looks like he's going to, rip her apart. Did you think that it was actually going to tear her apart?
Yeah, I definitely did, because she obviously, he was angry that she let Magneto go, so I did think that, yes.
Yeah. And then, what did you think Magneto was going to do when he was free?
I thought he was going to go join the team there, but I mean, it looks like he went to the North Pole and, did something to release some kind of global EMP.
Yeah.
To disable all the Sentinels, and I wonder if that's a permanent thing. Did he just fuck up all technology? Sorry for the language there.
No, she can't hear you. I got headphones on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Did he just mess up technology forever, or is it temporary or something like that? I'm very curious to know there, because it feels like this whole episode was setting up Bastion and Sentinels and AI and all that, but it's just oh no, Magneto just declared war essentially, and Wolverine even says that line. Magneto was fed up. Val says Magneto was right, and then he goes and does that very global thing.
Yeah. Okay, Clem, get out of here for now. We got to record. No, but he that's the very end, and the idea is that Magneto declared war. What are we gonna do next, right? But what I was gonna say was that we could talk about that in a second, but I want to get this one point with the action where So the part that almost made me cry this time was that Nightcrawler and Wolverine Wolverine's standing off against all these Sentinels. He's getting overwhelmed. And then he's like, I got 6 reasons why I'm not going down, or something like that. And then Nightcrawler's like, no, my friend, 9. And he's got thank you. Yeah, he's got fucking swords. He's got a sword in his fucking tail. He's ready to rock.
Yeah, it was such a great epic moment, and at the same time a great fantastic pun, because Germans say 9 for no and all that, but it was great. It was a great action sequence there. They're both just tearing the shit out of these human Sentinels, all trying to protect Rogue. One of my favorite visuals is there's a point where Wolverine is stabbing one from behind and Nightcrawler's in front, and then Nightcrawler pulls both of them through the bamf, and you get that visual. And I thought that was one of the most interesting ways to ever portray that. That I had seen previously.
Yeah, Wolverine's all stretched out and looking weird, and it looks like Nightcrawler's kind of traveling through space when he bamps. Yeah, well, I mean, it's limbo, isn't it? That's probably what it is. Yeah, probably. Yeah. But that sequence was so fucking good. So we have all this great action, and then we get up to what you were talking about before, where Val Cooper does this great speech, and she's kind of talking about the inevitability of how no one was shocked when Genosha happened. It was horrible, but no one was shocked by it. And you know, she basically ends this great speech with Magneto was right. He does this thing which you're saying is like an EMP, and during that sequence, we get another fucking great cameo.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was confirmed that the intention of this Spider-Man cameo was the exact Spider-Man from the animated series.
Yep, yep. So, do you think that? I mean, I'm guessing that this is a huge hit. So, do you think that like they're gonna try to continue that show next?
I hope so, and I'll watch every second of it. Although I didn't watch. I mean, I definitely watched more X-Men episodes than I did of the Spider-Man cartoon. I think the Spider-Man came like a year or two after. Like it started in like season 3 or something like that of X-Men.
Yeah.
So I think I fell off a little before then.
Right. But like if you got like someone like Bo DeMeo doing that show too, I'd be like all fucking on board, man.
I hope so, and I'm still hopeful that he can come back for season 2 here as well.
Yeah. So the very last beat, so we get like Magneto saying no more. We have, you know, all these great lines, and then you get this last "To Me, My X-Men" as Xavier crashes into the mansion with you know, his fucking Shi'ar ship.
Yeah, I'm laughing because I'm thinking like Magneto's EMP must have made this ship crash. Like I think it's terrible. The time for that.
Yeah. That's actually fucking perfect. Yeah.
Although if I have to put one negative comment about this show in this episode, and I know that Charles is in a spaceship and he's in the sci-fi and all this shit, and who knows how fast those things go, whatever. How the hell is Charles there before Storm?
I know. Yeah, I know. Because she's just like in Texas, right?
Yeah, she's in Texas.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I mean,
you could drive there in less than a day, you know?
Yes. And he's coming from the other side of the galaxy.
From fucking space.
Yeah. And, you know, it's funny because there's so many moments in this episode that it feels like, oh, this is going to be the last scene, and then the credits are going to show up. You know, like Magneto escapes, credits, right? Magneto does the EMP, credits. Then it's like, no, Professor X has to show up. And then he does that thing where he's like, to me, my X-Men. And it's so cool because it's like the classic X-Men comics where you see their faces as he's like contacting them, and you see Storm. So you're like, oh yeah, here we go. So fucking good, man. Only 2 more fucking episodes left.
Yeah, I'm very excited. This has been a highlight watching this year so far. So, and that's saying a lot because we've seen some great stuff lately. But this tops it. I will be shocked if something beats this for me this year. And I even Deadpool and Wolverine, I feel like I could very confidently say this is my favorite thing this year.
Hell yeah. I'm right in the same boat with you, man. I feel the exact same way. Yeah, so we got 2 episodes left, guys. Make sure that you join us for the remaining 2 episodes of X-Men. We're also covering Fallout on Amazon Prime. We're going episode by episode. We're up to episode 4 of that. Next week is going to be episode 5. But yeah, this has been a good time for me and Brian. So make sure that you guys subscribe to our channel, like this video. We can always use the attention, and we will see you mutants real